Good morning, IG Live. Here I am with the digital marketing manager for the TCS Sydney Marathon, James Constantine. My man has been everywhere in this city and all over Australia, hyping and promoting this race. Psyched to have him join me this morning from the Four Seasons. What's going on, James? How are you?
Oh, mate, I'm fantastic. It's almost race day, isn't it? It's a really exciting time, very busy, but we're super pumped for Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine what the energy level feels like for you. You and the team have just been going at this thing literally for months, as far as I know, that I'm aware of, but obviously it's been going on even longer. So how about you frame a little bit of like the process of like how long this has actually been going on? And, you know, really what's been like for you, you know, kind of being one of the key pillars in this thing, driving everything to try to make Sydney a major.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess we were announced as a candidate World Major Marathon in 2022. So it was a few weeks before the event. There's not much you can do, obviously, when you're announced a few weeks before the event, but the 2022 Sydney Marathon was technically the first year of candidacy. For those who don't know, you have to basically pass all the criteria points with marathon majors for 2 years in a row. So we didn't really have a proper chance in 2022. But what we were able to do is have a really good 12-month crack at 2023. I think that's where a lot of people started to really notice a lot of the major changes to the Sydney Marathon. We sort of went from 5,000 to almost 17,000 entries in the marathon, so tripled in a single year. And now we're at 25,000 sold out stage for this year for the marathon. And I guess we'll talk through some of the other changes with the event, but the momentum within Australia, but particularly internationally this year, has just grown exponentially.
Yeah, what a great lead in that was, James. Thank you. And yeah, I've seen some of the stats and the graphics you all put together. James put together an Instagram channel, you know, that a ton of people have signed up for, where he's just kind of sharing little tidbits every day of like where we are, how many days to go at the race, where the fan zones are in the course. So honestly, you guys have really put a serious amount of effort and energy in, and it's definitely appreciated. And for me, a guy who lives running the majors and has traveled around the world and back and done the series 3 times, I couldn't be more stoked for you guys. And I just want to see it come together. And I just can't even imagine. We're looking out. We got the Sydney Opera House right behind us, but the Harbour Bridge is just a few feet over my other shoulder, but we can't fit in frame on Instagram Live here to pull it off. But I can't believe that we're going to be running across that Sydney Harbour Bridge at sunrise, dude. How crazy is that going to be?
It's awesome. So we moved the start time back an hour from last year, and we actually moved the start line as well. So we used to start underneath the Harbour Bridge, do a 400-metre climb, a right-hand turn, and then over the bridge. But this year we're actually starting at the same start point as the Sydney 2000 Olympic Marathon, which is amazing. The blue line is still on Miller Street, where the men's and women's Olympic marathons were held. And I think one of the videos I did, I sort of like point to the line saying, "Hey, this is where we're starting, everyone. You know, get excited." And it just means that there's a lot more space for people to sort of warm up, which, you know, is really important. There's loads more toilets. I think we've tripled the toilets this year, which is great for runners. And yeah, there's just a whole lot of changes and a lot of work from our operations team. No, that's me. It's all the operations team. We've got about I think 9 or 10 people now in the ops team. We had like 2 or 3 2 years ago. So as the event's grown, our event team delivering the event has grown exponentially as well, in order to be able to sort of satisfy world major outcomes, but then actually just run a really good event as well.
Fantastic. I think with the growth of the race, you talked about the numbers being like 5 to 15 and just building and, you know, getting sold out status, hosting the World Marathon Age Group Champs, the first time ever a World Marathon Majors Age Group Champs would be hosted at a non-major race. So huge steps. I mean, big building blocks in front of you. But I love how the fact that the course has been around for a long time, but there was feedback about, you know, potentially some areas that maybe weren't so smooth for the runners and maybe even for the volunteers and the people on the race admin side. And you guys took that to heart and you made changes. But the coolest thing ever is you pulled back in 2000. You pulled back in the Olympic start along with those other changes. So talk about how that came to be, like you all entertaining that feedback, I guess talking about it with Wayne, the race director, and other people on the team. Like, how did that all come to be and how did you shape these changes to the course that we're all going to be blessed enough to run for the first time, this awesome new course?
Yeah, great question. I think we all kind of knew what we wanted to do even before the 2023 event happened. there's two parts to it. The first one is obviously getting that feedback from the runners. So they need to let us know, okay, there's too many turns here, or it's a little bit hilly there. Sydney's a fairly lumpy city. You can't get rid of all the hills. That's just never going to happen. It's not like you can get rid of Heartbreak Hill in Boston, or the bridges in New York. But we did the best we possibly could, I guess, with the parameters we have. In saying that, you also need the buy-in from the New South Wales government, the roads and transport authorities, and then also the local councils. You got, I think there's 5 different councils we run through, and 4 Indigenous lands we run through as well. I wanted to mention that. That you need buy-in from everyone to say, yeah, okay, we're going to shut the main road in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, which is called Anzac Parade, and that's one of the roads that you run for miles down one way and miles back up the other way this year. We were never able to close that road because we didn't quite get the buy-in from the councils and probably the money to do so as well. You sort of stop a lot of west to east bound traffic in doing that. But as the event grew, and I guess as we started to prove ourselves a little bit last year, that's when the councils and the authorities were sort of like, okay, this is really happening. Like these guys are actually on that pathway to become a major. We're starting to understand now what that means. We're happy to buy into the dream. So it is absolutely that feedback from the runners, but you also have to get all those authorities on board. I think that's one of the pillars of all the majors, particularly New York, because I was there a couple of years ago talking to some of the other race directors as part of an experience I did behind the scenes, which I was very lucky to do. And I think Ted Metellus, the race director of New York, was saying like the relationship, like it is all about the relationships we have with all the authorities in New York that we're able to pull this off year after year for 50 plus years. Without them, we don't have the New York City Marathon. So it's super, super important at the end of the day to have those relationships.
Yeah, so well said, because, you're tapping into Ted, race director for New York, that community of the Abbott Majors, it's a family. That's really what it is. So the Tokyo race director, Boston Marathon, Chicago, London, Berlin, they're all sharing best practices. And clearly you guys have tapped into that to try to create a unique experience. And, with the world majors, age group champs here, and 1,800 athletes coming in, right behind us at the Opera House, they're going to have like a group photo and all sorts of activities, post-race parties, amazing swag. It's going to be totally epic. But that's one piece of it. The other far bigger piece to me that's super appealing to me as somebody who's been running for a long time and just lives it and it's in my blood is just how many first-time runners that you have. I think it's really unusual as far as a demographic goes. So speak to that a little bit, because I think that's just super cool that you're taking people and getting them off the ground and getting their first, the training wheels are coming off, man, on Sunday. And they're gonna cut their teeth in their first marathon on this course.
We are not a country of marathoners, and we still kind of aren't, or we're certainly not compared to Europe and America, but we're starting to understand the romance around 42.195K or 26.2 miles. I think the first thing is Australia is really hot. So running a marathon is really tough in terms of conditions. We love our 10Ks and half marathons, and often you'll see, we've got the largest fun run in the world. I think maybe second to Bay the Breakers with the Sea to Surf. So that had 90,000 people in a few weeks ago in August, but they're all running 14K, and that's like, I've done the Sea to Surf. That's a real achievement, and that's kind of where people limited themselves. What we wanted to try and do as part of the CanC is, we need to be able to triple numbers in a single year and then continue on from there. You need to convince people that actually marathons are achievable. It's not just for seasoned runners. They're not just for elite runners. And these are sort of some of the examples as to why you can do it. So showing imagery of people who might have run in 2022 that would inspire those to try and register for 2023 and actually start their marathon journey and make it more than just a race or a run for themselves, actually changing a part of their lives. There's been a huge run club movement as well in Australia of late, as it has been globally post-COVID. I think that's helped accelerate that movement based on some of the, communication we've put out our end, and then also a couple of the other major marathons in Australia, Gold Coast and Melbourne Marathon. We're all now selling out. all people have sort of bought into that dream, and they're saying to themselves, I want to run a marathon. It's something I feel like I can achieve because now I've seen myself or I've seen someone who looks like me achieve that. My friend, did it last year. I should be able to do that this year as well. And then also buying into that dream of let's make history together with, hashtag make history, hashtag make Sydney a major. These sorts of, commentary from us. Yes, you're running for yourself, but you're actually running for your city as well. You're running for Australia to be able to get a major here. So there's a lot of things at play, but at the end of the day, it's all just trying to inspire really regular people who not necessarily would call themselves runners 12 months ago, actually step up and give the 42.2K a crack.
You did such a great job on that. And it's kind of ironic because I was going to lead you right to where you just went. So you beat me to the punch. But I think when you're really trying to build something from that grassroots level, when you're trying to come ground up and you're going to try to talk to runners and convince runners who maybe have those doubts, hey, I couldn't do that. A marathon is too far. That's just a dream I could never, pull off. But you guys have gotten into the communities with these local run clubs. And I followed it, through the app, through all the marketing that you've done, which you and your team have been doing such a terrific job of sharing it. Every one of these runs, people are turning out in the pouring rain, they're showing up, they're representing their club team or, whatever area of, Australia they're from. And that's how it starts. That's how you get that momentum going. And, hopefully when we all go back home, and I joked around yesterday when I was talking with James that I've aged up at least 1 year from my flight, from my 21-hour flight getting down here. So
it's a long way.
I think I'm in a new age group now, but honestly, that's better for me because I can make the automatic qualifier easier if I did age up, but I am kidding about that. But honestly, the job that you've all done, getting those groups and, I say ASICs, you guys say ASICs down here, like your lead brands, talk a little about them and how much they've helped you and Wayne and the team, get out there into the community. Your ambassadors have done a terrific job as well because I've seen you guys like everywhere. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the big one this year was we signed our multi-year title partnership with Tata Consultancy Services or TCS. So they're the title partners for TCS New York City Marathon. There we are there. And the TCS London Marathon as well. So when and that conversation had been going on for a long, long time. They were really following our candidacy journey, and obviously want to jump on board before we become a major. So to be on that journey with us, but having that, I guess, expertise in the running space around the world with the two largest marathons in the world, but also I think they have partnerships with 15 of the largest marathons in the world, including the Mumbai Marathon, being an Indian-based company globally with the Tata Group. So yeah, they understand running, and so it was a really, really good fit for us to be, I guess, led by a globally recognized business brand, but also someone who really gets running. That's super important. You need people to understand what the marathon's all about. So for us, that was a great announcement. I think it was early July we announced that partnership. And then ASICs have been a partner with the event for 17 years. They signed a 6-year deal with us to, again, really solidify that road to the majors, but also obviously post and continuing to build year on year their partnership with us and upscaling everything they do. So they've been really involved, I guess, at a grassroots level, doing shoe testing at our Sydney Marathon run clubs, increasing the number of merch. I think they've got more than double the stock of merchandise from last year. We all know how challenging merch can be, particularly from a majors standpoint. So they've done a fabulous job. And again, just getting us the latest designs, the latest kit, having access to their global kit now, not just sort of sourcing domestically from retail. ASICs have been a wonderful partner of the event for so long. I've only been here for 18 months, but I can see the longevity of those relationships sort of coming to fruition because, again, you've got a lot of people from these companies and brands who really understand runners and know what you're trying to achieve rather than sort of partnering with someone and they're like, okay, we just want to slap our logo on stuff and there's your money. So yeah, working with brands, big brands, globally recognized brands, but those who understand the sport and what the dream is, what the goal is it's a great partnership.
it's a great choice on your part as well, because you're picking partners that have the experience in these venues, these great venues, the World Marathon major venues, New York City, London, as you said. And their app is built for data. I mean, that's what they do for a living. So it gives you the opportunity to share all this great content, all your shakeout runs that are going on, local activities to do, track other runners, send notes and messages to runners from family and friends at home that are following us, because we're all from far away, just as like you guys have to fly like 100 million miles every race you're all going to do. When I hear people complaining about flying to Australia, I go, what about my Aussie friends, man? What do you think? They just blink and they're in Tokyo or in New York or London? These guys are strapping it on and flying 15, 16 hours all the time. So, this is what we do, man. See the world, experience culture, get out there, man, lace them up and learn something. And also with the app as well, there's just so much great content in there, which again, you and the team have really been spirited in pushing out there. And it just gives with your demographic being a lot of first-time runners, it gives them a place to look at information, whether it's about fueling or what's the course like, or all of those other different things. So I'm excited about the fact that you guys are connected with them. And I think now might be a good lead into, let's just break the course down, man. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine that anybody who's on live right now that will watch this either right now or even later on, or the pod that will drop, the race will be over. But a lot of the people who will tune in, they may not have ever been to Sydney. They may have never even considered running Sydney, but maybe after they hear us and they get the buzz from the race, they're going to be like, wow, this sounds like a must race. Let me add it for 2025. So why don't we start right behind us, man? I mean, actually, we can't quite see it, but I promise you that over my shoulder over there, and I don't want to move the Instagram live camera, I promise you that, because we will probably lose you all and drop you. But over my shoulder over there is the Sydney Harbor Bridge. And we're starting at 6 a.m. or 6:06, I believe, or something.
6:06 is wave A. Yep.
Okay, so that's going on. And it's timed up to be like sunrise. So, start us there, James, and just take it away. If you want to maybe break it in like 5K chunks, maybe, in terms of like how the course lays out. I think everybody would love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned before, it's essentially the Olympic marathon start line. The blue line itself, I think, is like somewhere around wave B. So we've moved the start line like a little bit further, just past an intersection with Miller Street. So that's where it starts. And then the first K is kind of crazy. It's a 50 meters or 100 and I think it's 170 feet net downhill. That first K or first 3/4 mile, it's wild. It's downhill to the bridge. So if you think about like the equivalent, it would probably be like Boston. Boston's kind of like a downhill start. It'll be a quick first K. So if anyone's tuning into the broadcast, and I should mention the broadcast is going to be on the Sydney Marathon YouTube channel, but it's also going to be live at 135 countries on Sunday morning Australian time. So you won't miss the race if you want to watch it. That first K split, I'm really looking forward to watching both the elite men and women, because I'm thinking something like 2:40 for the guys, 3 minutes to the ladies. It will be super, super quick. But what it means for everyone else is that you basically just get to lean into the first K, and then you hit essentially the bottom of the bridge to start your second K. Then a tiny little climb to the apex. It's about 10 meters or 30 feet just from the bottom to the top of the apex of the bridge. It's not that steep, and everyone gets to experience that sunrise or the sun rising over the harbour, with no fatigue whatsoever. That's the best thing. It's not 20 miles. It's literally like the first or second mile. So it'll be spectacular. It rises to the left of the runners, so people will literally just look over to the left and there's the sunrise there. From the bridge, you go towards one of the inner city suburbs called Piermont, and that's, I guess, on the other side of the Opera House. So this is sort of the Sydney side and a lot of where the tourists will go, but the other side, Piermont, is a really beautiful section. Again, it's still along the water, but there's just some little, I'd say, undulations as you make your way through the Piermont. It goes past the Star Casino, which is one of the highlights of that area, but also a lot of the wharves. There's a lot of really beautiful restaurants sort of along the wharves there, along the piers. So runners won't run up and down the piers, but they also run along some of the main roads there. That's sort of the first, I'd say, 10K of the course. Then they after the 10K point, you start to move head back north towards the bridge, but you're not at bridge level this time. You're at sea level, so you'll run towards the bridge and you'll kind of see it like above you.
Yeah.
And the road, it's called Hickson Road, actually goes underneath the bridge. So that you'll run underneath the bridge at sea level before making your way through to the rocks. So we're at about 12 or 13K now.
Which is where we are right now, by the way.
Yep, this is the rocks.
So the
yep.
Four Seasons Hotel, along the waterfront, one side you have the CBD and the other side you have the rocks, right? Because this is all I know about Australia. I've learned in 1 or 2 days. So yes, I had to like throw something in to actually know.
So the Rocks is the oldest area of Sydney. The oldest pub in Sydney, I think it's like 1850, something. I should know this as I'm the tour guide. But it's in the Rocks, and there will be the first of our one of 6 fan zones. So a lot of people will be gathered there. There'll be big screen TVs, MCs, DJs, free coffees for people, giveaways. We got a lot of our sponsors partnering with these fan zones as well. So it will just be a vibe. And after COVID, they actually closed one of the lanes to put outdoor seating for the restaurants. So it's actually like a 1-lane, real sort of like tunnel kind of thing. And you think of like the Tunnel of Noise and some of these majors, it's kind of got that vibe to it, the Rocks. There's no high-rise buildings. They're also like 3-4 stories high, but it's a beautiful area to run through. And yeah, you'll start to really feel that crowd around that 13K mark, which is great. After passing through that fan zone, you then sort of make your way through the CBD. So again, more high rises. And this is probably where I'd say the most challenging part of the course in terms of the elevation comes, because to get from sea level up towards Hyde Park and then out towards Moore Park or the eastern suburbs, I think it's about a 50 or 60 meter climb in total. But there's a little sort of S bend as well. So we're just throwing a little bit more of a challenge in there for everyone rather than going straight up. So that's between that 13 and 17K mark. But going past, once you've done most of that elevation, up a street called Macquarie Street, which runners will run on the right-hand side, and they'll actually finish down Macquarie Street. And I'll get to that soon. That's on the left-hand side. Going up the right-hand side at 16 and then 17K, you'll pass Hyde Park. And that's, it's not Central Park by any stretch, but it's the inner city park. It's a beautiful green area, and that will be on the right-hand side of runners with the St. Mary's Cathedral on the left-hand side as well. So that's a really nice part of the city. So after passing Hyde Park, it's then just a little left towards Oxford Street, and Oxford Street is our LGBTQI plus community. A lot of gay bars there, but we in Sydney, I guess, like a very very progressive in that area, and we really celebrate, and the Sydney Marathon celebrates runners of all backgrounds, all diversities, all orientations, and we actually have probably our biggest fan zone called the Running with Pride Zone. Nice. At Oxford Street. So we've got drag queens, we've got DJs, performers, it was a real vibe. I know we were sort of inspired by the London Marathon, TCS London Marathon, because they've got a wonderful pride zone there as well. We really want to, I guess, emulate that and again bring out all communities, because the Sydney Marathon, TCS Sydney Marathon, is for everyone. So we're very proud of that area, and a lot of runners were sort of like, "Hey James, You put a lot of effort into the fan zones last year, but I remember that Running with Pride Zone. Man, that was a vibe. And the DJs allowed us there. It's great. So really looking forward to that this year. And we've actually got a partnership with one of the major local radio stations, and they're going to have one of their presenters doing the MC there as well. So that will be a real vibe. So that's at 17K. Again, that will be 36K or I think 21 miles on the way back. So again, we're still heading out towards the east at this point. So going past the Rain with Pride zone, we then head on to Anzac Parade, and you can consider this the highway of the course. It's long, it's straight, and it's flat, and that's where runners will really get into their stride. And again, at that 17K point or sort of 11 miles, like you're still working your way into the run. You're not at halfway yet. You're feeling comfortable. So this is when you can start to be like hitting splits, mile splits, K splits. It continues to go down the Anzac Parade. There's a little sort of out and back towards on a road called Dacey Avenue. Again, that's just to pick up distance, but there's none of these turns are U-turns or by any stretch of imagination. They're big, wide roads. We're talking like 3 lanes each direction, loads of space, and the runs will be spread out at this point as well. Continuing down the Anzac Parade, you'll hit the halfway mark just before the turnaround at the end of Anzac Parade. So it's about 4K or 2.5 miles just of straight road. You make that left turn at, I think it's 21.5K just after halfway, and then head back up towards the University of New South Wales. So what we're trying to do here is emulate Boston's Wellesley College.
Wellesley.
Yes. So we won't have 10,000 students quite this year. We'll work towards it. We'll get there in a few years' time.
That's called the Scream Zone, by the way. You have Pride Zone in London, or you're going to have one here, but the Scream Zone is real. You could put some noise-canceling headphones on there if you don't like loud noises, or you just like embrace it, man, because it's wild as fuck.
We won't be at that stage, but we're hoping, and we've been talking really closely to the university, and again, selling the dream of, get the students on campus out there, and so quite a few of them are doing drink stations. We have another one of our fan zones there. So that should be a really good vibe running through past the university at 22, 23K. You continue straight back up the road, really not much to speak about. Again, it's 4K out, 4K back. And you sort of hit that 27K mark, I'd say, before making a right onto Moore Park Road and then another right onto Driver Avenue. So Driver Avenue is where our two of Sydney's largest sporting grounds are, Allianz Stadium, which is where a lot of the rugby is played, and then the Sydney Cricket Ground, where the cricket's played, but also Australian rules football. So I know it's starting to pick up a little bit in America, both those sports. So that's sort of the main Sydney football team, and the cricket in the summer is played at the cricket ground, and there's a lot of history there. So that's cool to sort of run past both those stadiums. They're right next to each other. Literally, the stadiums almost touch, which is cool. And then you make a left towards Centennial Park. So
just one sec before we hit Centennial Park, because I saw a couple of questions, which maybe we'll pop to those later, but I just popped into my head because, you're seeing the Facebook channels, the Instagram channels, people having questions. A friend of mine, Heather, who's run a ton of the majors, I met her and her husband a couple of times. I saw on a Facebook page somewhere, and, I can't chime in on all this stuff or comment or any more than you can, but she was asking, it was a good question because it's probably clear and I should know the answer, but I didn't. She was asking if the course was going to be only marked in kilometers or would there be any mile markers at all, whether it be at a significant amount, a halfway mark or something else. I'm totally prepared for it to be all Ks, but I thought it was a good question, so why not address it? Great
question. It will be only Ks.
That's fine.
But I think it's marked every kilometer. So you'll get the 1 to 8 41, like every K there'll be a marker. So I guess it's just essentially syncing up your Garmin, whether you're working in Ks or miles, and just, I guess, understanding that conversion. But it's a really good point, I guess, moving forwards, because we've never really had to think about it before.
Sure.
Not having the amount of Americans running the event, or even British athletes running the event as well. It might be something that we can potentially incorporate next year, because and even if they're not significant, so K markers, having some sort of indication that, hey, this is 13.1 miles, which actually probably not a good example, that's halfway, but this is the 20-mile mark compared to, say, the 32K mark, because a lot of athletes in Australia will look for 32K knowing, okay, I've got 2 park runs to go, or I've got 10K to go. But to answer the question, K markers.
That's perfect. And I could share with you, because like Tokyo, just having run all the other internationals, they do it well, because they don't have a lot of miles, US miles, but they have some of the key ones, like 10 miles, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And personally, I've gotten really good at just racing by kilometers, using 5K splits. There's 8 of them. And then, from there, you have 2.2 to go.
Yeah.
But, just writing that out, on a Sharpie, on your forearm, on your hand. I've started using index cards that I use sometimes when I'll do like a stage show, which you hooked me up with. We're going to do a live stage show at the Expo Saturday morning. So anybody who's here, come see me 9:00 Saturday morning. We're going to be having a convo live on the stage. But I've gotten to using index cards, and I just write 5K, 10K, 15K, 20K on one side of it, 25, 30, 35, 40 on the other side. I just use like a double tape or a laminating tape so it won't run on you, because as we know, when we get sweaty and we're out there running, and if we've got it in our half tights or our jog bra or wherever else we decide to stash this thing, you don't want it running all over you. But that's a good way to approach it for the people who are only used to miles, and go from there. But so now we're getting into Centennial Park, which is super cool, because I know last year that was one of those areas of the course that you guys made modifications on. So pick it back up from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a good point. In Centennial Park last year, there was 8 kilometers or 5 miles of running in there. The circumference of the park itself is just under 2.5 miles or 4K. So there's a couple of out and backs. Now that sort of goes back to what I was saying about the road closures. You've got to fit 26.2 miles into Sydney, and we had to make concessions last year to be able to do that. This year, because all that road now that's been opened up with Anzac Parade, running down that sort of highway, flat, road similar to, say, Berlin, it's basically allowed us to just do the single loop, which runners were, particularly local runners, they were celebrating. They're like,
yeah,
dude, that is the best change ever. I don't have to run Centennial Park out and back. Funnily enough, I ran the Sydney Marathon in 2015, and that's what broke me. So I know, I personally know, I've run 2 of them here. One I ran pretty well, and one of them was terrible, and I broke it. I think it was 27K in the park.
So you can thank James for the change. He's like, I'm not running loops.
Personal decision, no. So what? Yeah, I have to give credit to Wayne, the race director, as well. He's done a wonderful job to really, we use the term smooth out the course. It's not a super flat course, but we've certainly smoothed it out. So just making sure the experience for every runner, whether it's our leads or the back of the pack, doesn't matter. They get a better experience. So that loop, I think about K into that loop is the 30K mark. Again, that 30K point, there's going to be a lot of people there cheering. A lot of run clubs from the eastern suburbs will come out to Centennial Park, because that's sort of our mecca of running. Saturday mornings at Centennial Park, I'm there most Saturday mornings. It is it's so busy over the last few years as running's picked up. Like it's a really, really cool place to be. So we're expecting, thousands of people have been in Centennial Park and cheering on these runners. And it's getting to a point of the course where you go 30, 31, 32, 33K. Like you're starting to really get into the marathon there. So that I think that support's going to be really helpful. So coming out of the course, it is around about the 33K mark out of the park. You head back right, so running past the Stames on the way in. You'll go on the other side of the road to run past the Stames on the way out, before turning right onto Moore Park Road. Again, that's just a little 400 metres out, turn around, 400 metres back towards Oxford Street, so where that Running with Pride zone is. So if you thought the noise was loud at 17K, wait for 36. 36K, it'll be absolutely pumping.
Yeah.
So and then I guess at that point, because that was sort of like where we finished that sort of that climb out of the city. Now you get that really nice downhill. So from 37, 38, and 39K, making your way back past Hyde Park, St. Mary's Cathedral right now on your shoulder, and heading towards a place called Mrs. Macquarie's Chair. So there's a road called Art Gallery Road, the Art Gallery of New South Wales. You'll pass that on your right. That's at 38K. But this is a one-lane road. So again, it's like there's carnage out there. It's the marathon. Like people also like be on the go to the left. There's plenty of drinks, stations there, which is great. We've got good conditions on Sunday, but last year it was hot and there was a bit of carnage out there. I saw in the videos and photos, but it's a great place to run, particularly going down that sort of slope. And at 39K, not only are you going to get an amazing view of the Opera House, because you literally turn the corner, and as you turn the corner, the harbour literally opens up right there in front of your face. It's wonderful. And you can see the Opera House. It's 3K away, but you can see it. And that's sort of the inspiration that a lot of people needed to then make their way back up the slope, back up towards Hyde Park before making that right-hand turn. The last of our fan zones as well is going to be called the watering hole. And there's going to be a 200 person grandstand, a jacuzzi, and some of our biggest ambassadors. So there's a podcast called Hello Sport. They're two blokes who just talk about rugby, and they're quite, I'd say, colloquial and Australian. So they're going to be there. And we've got Budgie Smuggler, who we've just partnered with. They do swimwear. And particular briefs for men and bikinis for ladies. So they're sort of putting on the jacuzzi, and they've got their own Sydney Marathon strip, and it's going to be a vibe. Again, 39K, that's where you need that noise and that energy, and it's going to definitely be brought at that stage. So after you make that left-hand turn, you can see the Opera House. 3K to go, amazing. You'll head back up that slope. Again, there'll be a drink station at 40K. That's the last place you'll get waters and electrolytes and things like that. Just making sure you're fueling for the last 2K. Head back up towards that slope, back towards Hyde Park, and then you'll make a right-hand turn just before 41K. Our ASICS hot corner is going to be there. It'll be a DJ on scaffold. They'll be smashing tunes. They'll be on the left-hand side at, I think it's 40.6K. And on the right-hand side, we've got our Run Club zone. So I thought back to Berlin in 2019, the Berlin Braves, one of the biggest run clubs there. I remember them so well at, I think it was 39K. And it was like confetti guns, and it was noise, it was megaphones, it was such vibes. Like, that's, again, what we're trying to emulate. We're trying to take these things of the other majors and say, look, you know, they've done that so well in that event. How can we emulate that and make that like a Sydney thing? So we've got, I think, 12 marquees of 12 of our biggest Sydney run clubs, and they're going to be supporting everyone, not just their own run club members. They're going to be making noise all day. So that's that last right-hand turn. And then the best part of the course, the best finish line in the world, is downhill. I think it's net 45 meters for that last mile, and it's down Macquarie Street to the Opera House. People will be emptying the tank, giving it everything. There'll be 400 meters to go signs towards the bottom of that downslope. You'll hit the roundabout. You'll see the people. We had about, I think, 10 deep this year. We're expecting 15, 20 deep in that last 200-meter spectator zone just before the finish line. You make that little right round the roundabout. You'll see the Opera House. It truly is something to behold. And just walking through that finish line the day before during the build last year, being at the sort of hospitality area. I'll be in the media center again this year as well. I'll be spending a lot of time around that finish line. You can't help but, yeah, as an Australian, having a marathon that big there, we don't have a world major. Like, seeing that last year and knowing how much bigger it's going to be again this year, it really is. Yeah, it's got to be up there with one of the best finish lines in the world. So it all happens right there on the steps, on the forecourt of the Sydney Opera House. That's where everyone's going to be finishing. And that's the course.
That's it. That's so well done. Great breakdown. And I mean, come on, how much more iconic can it get than this? I mean, it is literally amazing. Last night, I just went for a couple mile run, just a few K, just to get out of the hotel for a little bit, get some air, and just timed up, sunset, golden hour, beyond perfection, and the buildings are changing colors, and the ferries are zooming in and out, and there's just people buzzing everywhere and getting on the light rail. Just a great energy, great vibe. And I just can't even imagine, I've seen the pictures of it. I've seen people running in on YouTube videos and whatnot last year. But obviously the scale of it is just going to be so much bigger this year with all these fan zones and all this stuff that you guys have put together with the run clubs and all these partnerships. It's just going to be iconic is really the best word for it, man, because you are coming up that home stretch, man. I don't care if you walk the last couple of miles, man, you better summon up some energy and run, get your hype poses ready to go, because that's where you're going to get your money shots right there. So make sure you're bringing the love and energy, because, all the guys that are on the mics, I think we got Mona is going to be calling the race. We talked about yesterday, Australian legend marathoner of all time. When you have a workout named after you, and it's just your shortened name as Mona, like, you don't just have one name, you have one shortened name, and then you have a workout named after you. These are like all the icon check boxes, legend boxes. But, if you bring the hype and energy, man, maybe they'll call your name out on the microphone. I sure as hell hope they're going to call me out when I'm rolling in, man. I'm going to be fired up for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I haven't really talked about it, but we've got, I think it's 16 MCs on the course. So that's start line, finish line. But then at all the fan zones, there will be MCs. At some of the activations, there'll be MCs. We've got 14 videographers and 14 photographers and 8 photographers just contracted by us. So we've like tripled our coverage in terms of content on the course. And yeah, like we've just tried to upscale everything because again, there's going to be so much happening. There's so many people, and we want everyone to feel just as special on the day. So putting everything we can towards doing that is like one of my highest priorities, being in marketing and media. So yeah, I think one of the things that people sort of remember, or hopefully will remember about Sydney, is yes, the course, yes, the global icons, but everything else around the event. Like I felt like I was really listened to and heard and felt special on the day. And we want to be able to do that for literally 25,000 individuals, as well as the 10K and the mini marathon that's finishing just up the road as well. So that's for us, that's the biggest thing, to make sure that everyone has, I keep saying it, the best day ever. You gotta have the best marathon ever.
Well, just amazing stuff. And, we can't put an event on of this caliber without, as we say in Aussie land, we say volleys. Back home it'd be volunteers, but we can't do this stuff. We can't put together a quality event. We can't put together a great race without having the people from the community come out and show up and put on a shirt, be a volunteer, not do the race. Maybe they've run a bunch of other races this year and they're just not healthy, but this is something that really means something. It speaks to them. So I think I read that you guys broke 3,000 in terms of your number of volunteers. Yeah. So how awesome is that, man? That's got to make you feel really good.
It's incredible. We've got 3 ladies in the office who are sort of that volunteer management team, and they have absolutely hit it out of the park this year. They've done such an amazing job. It's more than 1,000 volunteers above what we had last year, and that was double what we had the year before. So it's an astonishing job, and I think it was actually probably the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games where the Sydney Olympics had, I think, a total of 40,000 volunteers across not just the 2 weeks, but for many, many weeks either side of the Games. It really changed that volunteerism component of Australia and inspired people to want to, I'd say, make sport happen, or make sport, arts and recreation happen. Because it doesn't happen without volunteers, from the grassroots all the way up to the Olympic Games and everything in between, including world marathon majors. So that movement has existed for the 24 years since the Games. And I think what people are starting to see as well with the marathon, and again, the Olympic start line helps, they're starting to think back to 2000, what that meant for Australia and how people just wanted to be part of that movement. It stopped the city. That George Street, which is the equivalent of Fifth Avenue in New York, the thing was shut every second day during the Games because it was just parades and live sites and people, and everyone in Sydney remembers that so well. Now we've got another event where we're getting close to 8,000 people from overseas coming to run in the sports event. There's no other event in Australia that has that level of, I'd say, annual international participation now. So that's when people are probably starting to think, well, I just want to be part of it. I might not be able to run 42.2K. I might not be able to, talk confidently into a microphone and be an MC, but I'm damn well going to be part of this movement. I want to be part of helping make history in Sydney again, just like 24 years ago. So, and this newer generation as well, who might be wanting to run Sea to Surf or some of the short distances, they're seeing their friends who might be in uni or college or, just starting their first time job, but wanting that additional challenge outside work hours. And they go run clubs and see their friends and they're like, I'm going to take on that marathon. I'm just like, I'm not there yet, but I want to support my friend. What can I do? How can I be part of this event? How can I be part of the day more than just sort of standing on the sideline, taking Instagram live or a story from my friend? Like, how can I actually sort of give back and make sure that other people have the best day ever as well? And those, we did a volunteer sort of piece on our socials during International Volunteer Week, and we highlighted a really wide demographic of some of those amazing individuals that make the event happen. And just hearing the stories was really beautiful, but it all came back to sort of the same the same sort of why. And it's, I just like I just want to make sure that people have the best time. And the reason how they show me that is the smile on their face and the thank you. And the smile on their faces and the thank you were the constant, regardless of age, gender, anything. That's what people made people intrinsically feel good about volunteering for the event. And I was like, it doesn't get more pure than that. And it was wonderful. So 3,000 volunteers. I think it's definitely an Australian record for volunteers at a marathon. I think it'd probably be one of the bigger ones in Australia as well in terms of those unpaid workforce.
Love it. Anytime we volunteer, anytime we do something community-based, I don't care if it's giving up your seat on the bus or the light rail for somebody else, maybe a pregnant woman or somebody who's got bags or carrying things, you just do something good. You instantly, if not right in that very second, maybe it's a moment, 2 moments later, 2 beats later, you just feel so good, man. It feels like something warm comes over you. And I've never run a marathon. This is number 82. I've never run a marathon where I felt like I was a politician. I wanted to go and shake everyone's hand, hug the people who allowed me, the sweaty guy, to hug them, and just say thank you. Like, say thank you. Look them in the eye and say, thanks for volunteering. And you don't need to wait till you get your medal. You don't need to wait till you finished your day. Hell, man, if you want to give yourself a boost of energy, let somebody know, man, hey, man, thanks for volunteering. Thanks for being out here. Shout out to the crowds, man. That's what's going to give you energy, man. If you're struggling and you're in a down spot and you're feeling like, am I going to be able to do this? I'm stuck. I'm in a rut. You got to find a way to dig yourself out. So the motto of this show is stay in the fight. It's my mantra personally, but how do you stay in the fight? How do you keep going? Like, just center yourself, stop thinking about, I have 10 more K to go or 20 more K to go. I had the great Dick Beardsley on live on the stage, talking about his epic duel in the sun with Alberto Salazar in 1982 in the heat. And he got to a point where with all the mileage and everything he'd done, he tried everything in the world to break Salazar in the hills, running them fast downhill, running them fast uphill, but he was on his shoulder. He could not get away. And he just was exhausted. You talked about being ready to give in Centennial Park. He was ready to hang it up. He was literally ready to just walk off and say, I can't break him, so I'm going to give in. And he convinced himself that instead of thinking I have 5 more miles to go, I have 1 more mile to go. I don't have to finish the race. I just need to go to the next mile. That's all I have to do. I don't have to finish. He more or less bargained with himself. He gave himself the position, the out, like I just need to make it to the next mile mark. And there's some magic in that. So we got a lot of first timers. You're going to hit some rough spots out there. You might hit a whole bunch of them, but I promise you, man, if you find your way through, it'll change you forever.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So good stuff. This has been so fun. I know we have some people on, not as many because my audience base is more New York City and the timing's a little funky, but this will go up on Instagram Live. It'll get saved so you can share it to anybody who's watching, somebody who's running, or maybe even somebody who's thought about Sydney, maybe for next year. Like, hey, they've never been to Australia like me, first time in this magnificently beautiful country with people with just the best damn energy and just so much fun. Hopefully you'll take away some fun lessons from this, learn a little bit about the course, and feel like you're a little bit more prepared for the race. It'll also drop as a podcast, although that'll probably be after the race is actually officially over. But still, we can always learn something from a conversation. And James, you have just been incredible. You literally know everything about this race. It's so clear that your heart and soul is into it, as well as your team and everybody that's a part of it. And that's what it takes to make something like this come to life. So, man, I'm rooting for you guys that in November you get that call and it's like, it's official, it's happening because you guys have all worked so hard to make this come to be.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate your support and for people like yourself to come and support Sydney, knowing how large your following is in America, and there's many other, I'd say, influential runners around the world who are coming to Sydney even to again help us secure that major, not waiting till 2025 to say, oh, I'll run it when it's a major. That is a credit to you and a lot of other international runners as well. So I'd like to thank everyone who has traveled and done the 21-hour flight to come and help us on that journey to the majors. We literally couldn't do it without the runners. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely great. And I did see one question from Chris. I mean, there were a few things. There's lots of comments. Hello, Nat. Hello, so many others. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Chris, who asked the question, and many, many others. It's very hard to have the conversation, watch the microphone audio, think about what we're talking about. And also, I wish I could hit the wave button and say hi to you all, because it always means a lot to me. I thank every single person who ever takes the time to listen to anything I'm putting together, any kind of conversation I'm hosting, because it's a blessing to be there. Chris had asked, would we see any kangaroos or any cool wildlife on the course? I don't think so, but I don't know.
I mean, if they let the gates out from the zoo across the harbour, maybe we'll get some kangaroos out, maybe a couple of giraffes. But no, there's no wildlife outside of maybe a couple of possums or there's unfortunately no kangaroos. But Taronga Zoo, all jokes aside, is one of the best zoos in the world. And again, I'm pointing kind of in the right direction. It's literally over there on the other side of the harbour. So if you are in town, pay a visit to Taronga Zoo. It's awesome. It's really, really worth a visit.
Fantastic, man. And look, there's going to be huge post-race parties, all kinds of stuff going on. So keep tuning into the app, because literally that's the best place to follow. It's that guy. It's what's your Instagram?
Oh, that guy who runs?
That guy
with full stops in between.
Yes, that guy.
Someone took the one without full stops like 6 years ago. I was really annoyed.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'll make this work.
Yeah, so that guy who runs with the underscores in there is James's personal page, obviously the Sydney Marathon page, but even the app, the channel, he has a running channel that he started with Instagram where he's kind of sharing daily tidbits. He did a medal share of the age group medal and the regular medal, and they're both awesome. I mean, these are some quality medals, man. I am really happy to be here and can't wait to have a chance to earn that bad boy. And again, we appreciate every single person who joined, and hopefully you guys will share it out there in your communities back home, or if you're here, and we appreciate your time.
Perfect. Thanks so much for having me, Ron.
All right, James. Thanks, brother.